Welcome back to Strange Form. Today, we will be looking at 3/0's 1/6 scale SIL from Species. Now I have to get this out of the way from the top. I'm not a huge fan of the Species franchise. As a matter of fact, I think that the basic premise was done much better in the film Splice. But I do think that the first and second film are highly watchable in a midnight monster movie kind of way. That being said, my feeling about the creature design is a whole other story. In the lead up to the film, the press material leaned heavily on the fact that they had a new monster created by Swiss surrealist H.R. Giger, lending the film an air of credibility that the script, directing, and acting couldn't deliver on. As a matter of fact, I probably enjoyed the second film more than the first simply because it really just went with the B-movie aspects. But back to the creature design. Most Species collectibles are selling to H.R. Giger fans rather than fans of the franchise, and from the packaging artwork to the magnetic flap box design, the entire presentation doesn't so much feel like an ode to the film, but a celebration of the aforementioned Swiss surrealists. Inside the box, we have very few accessories: the stand pole, with a waist pincher, a very heavy polystone base, and a couple of heel accessories for stabilization of the figure, something I'll get into later. But overall, the thick foam packaging is there to protect all of the extremely delicate details on the figure itself. My entire reason for buying this was that I just had to get it in hand to understand how they achieved the translucent body while still maintaining so much articulation. So I managed to pick one up for pennies on the dollar, being a deal too good to pass up. I have no regrets, as this figure is a bit of a marvel in innovative toy making. Right out of the box, the details are quite striking, and the material is a soft PVC laying over a detailed inner armature, but I can understand why some wouldn't be immediately impressed with it. It's basically brown, with deeper brown washes, and some other colors underneath to show contrast. Namely tan, black, and a reddish brown. But like its film counterpart, it's not the color scheme that makes the design interesting, but the intricate lighting. How well this thing looks in your display cabinet is going to be directly connected to how well you light it. The material catches specular highlights extremely well, and the translucency makes the play between the inner and outer details almost too much for the eye to take in, and equally difficult to film. Another thing I appreciate about this figure is, for lack of a better word, it's extremely feminine. It would have been easy to just go with a sort of flat body design, but 3/0 definitely went with the sexual nature of Giger's creature, and to my mind, they did it without coming off as tacky or lecherous. One of the main complaints I've heard online about this figure is of the soft PVC wrapping, and it's true, if you put her in a more dynamic pose, the PVC around the hips and thighs do deform a bit, but if you have a heat gun or hairdryer, they smooth out after only a limited time. And if you leave it in a non-action pose, it pretty much returns to neutral. The figure is also more of a beer bottle brown in person than it looks in the production stills, and I can't help but wonder if this is due to the plastic aging. But I did get the figure several years ago, not long after it was released, and at that time did a quick look over without pulling the plastic off, and it doesn't seem much different now than it was then. Nonetheless, I have to say that this is one of the most innovative figures that I've ever laid hands on. This was an extremely difficult design to pull off, especially attempting to do so in a semi-seamless fashion. My only major complaint is in regard to accessories. I understand that the complicated nature of the design probably meant that most of the money went into creating both the interior and exterior parts, but I think it would have been nice if she had come with the sharp inner tongue, the nipple tentacles, or maybe a few extra hands or closed mouth head. But I did get her for under $200, so at that price I feel completely fine with what was in the box. As for articulation, she has a surprising amount of movement considering that she's encapsulated in a PVC suit, and many of the points of articulation are ratchet joints, allowing for her to hold a pose even when there's tension put on the piece by the PVC layer. She has many extremely delicate and sharp little spines and hooks, but they are all less fragile than you might expect, standing up to a fair bit of handling while you're posing her. The only part I would be extremely careful around is the high heel spikes, which they gave you a couple of accessories to stabilize in case you wanted to stand her up without the aid of the stand arm. But honestly, I think that she looks way better with the support accessories rather than the little black wedges under her feet. My final verdict? I wouldn't buy this at the current $450 to $500 range that it's going for on eBay, but I do think that it's definitely worth picking up for anything below $250 and possibly up to $350 if you're a huge Species fan or want an Academy Award size posable Giger statue. The articulation and body design are more different than anything I've seen before, and the posability is surprisingly diverse. The details are so complex, I was not able to use the lens with autofocus, as it couldn't decide whether to catch the internal or external focus points. Though Species may not have been the best vehicle for such a striking design, 3/0 didn't give any less love creating this figure. As a matter of fact, I wish Hot Toys had cared as much with their big chap. So in the end, I'm happy with it. Let me know what your thoughts are on this in the comment section. Now I hope you enjoyed this episode of Strange Form, and will join me next week for a very special About the Channel episode. And remember, never stop collecting.